Hello everybody. So near enough sort of 3/4 of a year ago, at the beginning of the year, I said that I was going to share the development of my work with you throughout the year, warts and all. Fortunately, I didn't know then how many warts there were going to be, and so but I made that promise, and so I thought I would come on here today. If you follow me on other social media platforms, you probably know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to try and not just create a sad video, because that isn't going to be helpful for anybody, but to try and share what happens when these things happen. How do we manage with our studio practice, and what is it that we can do maybe to keep it going, or to move it on, or to change it? So just over a week ago, around a week ago now, my beautiful darling greyhound, who was near enough 13 years old, got very sick. So for the last week, I haven't been in the studio painting at all. But to suffice to say that my lovely greyhound Tansy didn't make it this week. And so I'm now facing time without her. And just a little brief thing. She was a rescue. She'd had a really hard time for the first of her few years. She'd been raised too young. She had been physically and likely mentally damaged by the experience. And she went to the wonderful Greyhound Trust. And 8.5 years ago, I essentially took her on, as they say, adopted her as my own. And I have been incredibly lucky to have such an amazing creature in my life and sharing my life for that 8 years. And she was incredible. She was such a soulful creature. She had a particular calm about her, and yet she had quite a feistiness as well, and a real strong personality. And she enabled me to create the most wonderful memories and experiences I had with her, which I will never forget. I will never forget her, and I will always love her. But I promised myself today I'm not going to sit here and cry, because that's not going to be very easy for you to watch, let alone anything else. But what I wanted to do today really was to talk about having had Tansy in my life for that long, and having her inform and tailor my practice around her and around her needs. Which I did willingly, and I love to do that, but nevertheless it meant that my studio practice was completely intertwined and related to my life with my greyhound Tansy, and now she's no longer here. So given the fact that I'm under time pressure, practically, I've got an exhibition, I've got responsibilities to an exhibition early next year, how am I going to move on with this? And I think what I wanted to do was to share some of the things I'm doing as a way of saying, well, look, things happen in our lives, not necessarily as absolutely sad and devastating as the loss of a beloved member of the family. And I do consider her my family. She was my best friend. But nevertheless, we have things that throw our practice. And with that in mind, what can we do to keep our practice going in some form? It probably will change, inevitably it will. Things can't just happen as though nothing has happened. But how do we kind of move on from it? But I wanted to share with you what I've done as I've come into the studio today, and what I will do with respect to my paintings. So in a minute, I'm going to turn the camera around. First of all, I'm going to show you just a shot of what it was like when I came into it this morning. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a tour around so that you can see what I've done. Because I think when things like this happen, we can't just pick up our studio practice like nothing has happened. And so firstly, I've done some sorting in the studio, and it really needed to happen. And there were lots of things, and as I walk around, I'll tell you about those things that kind of made it obvious to me that it needed to happen. And so time was right to really have a sort out and a tidy up. So I was kind of fresh with it, really, not coming into what I'd kind of left, if you know what I mean. And also I'm going to have a word about the paintings, because I was sort of battling with, like I usually do, kind of not quite halfway through, but maybe just almost halfway through my Summer Moors Heather paintings. So what am I going to do about that? So without further ado, I'm going to turn the camera around. So this is how the studio was when I came into it this morning. So somewhat of a mess. And I have been setting to try and resolve things and get things a bit more sorted out. Okay, so here we are 2 hours later after I've been spending some time tidying. So I'm going to walk around quite quickly and then I'll walk around so you can see the whole thing. And then I will ponder on things and talk about them so you can kind of see what it's all about. So this is the area I work in. So beyond those doors and beyond the hatch that you can see, I have a wider studio, but as those of you that have been following me for a while know that this is the area with all the windows in that I work in. So if I come over to the desk now, so what I've done really, just to kind of give you a bit of a summary really, is that as you can see, when I came into it, it was an absolute mess. So there's something kind of cathartic and renewing about sort of tidying everything up, clearing things and sorting things and creating a bit of a fresh start somehow. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been clearing away everything that was left out. I've been tidying things. I've been throwing away bits of paper and goodness knows what. So this desk was an absolute mess. Yet I really need to be able to work on my desk because I actually use it to write my notes in my sketchbook and to ponder my paintings, which are usually on the wall. And I'll talk about what's on the wall at the moment in a minute. And I therefore need to have some sort of sense of organisation. And what had happened over the last few weeks was everything had got piled up. It was all out of control. When I put something down, I could never find it and so on. I'm sure we all do that. So really doing this has really helped me to sort of sort things out and to get a bit of a clear head. Because one of the things I've found throughout the week since Tansy has left me is that my attention span is quite short, and so if I'm in a muddle, I just can't think things through. So having a physical, practical tidy up, so things are simpler and clearer, kind of just I think is going to really help me. And next week, or certainly soon, I'm going to do what I promised a while back I would do, which is to walk through one of my ongoing sketchbooks in great detail so you can see exactly what gets included in here. And this is my Moors sketchbook, because those of you following me for a while know that I'm doing a whole series of paintings about the moors. Some of them are about winter moors and some of them about heather moors. And it's part of an exhibition I'm doing next year, hopefully, as long as I get my paintings done. So that's my kind of desk area. And now swinging around, I had paints all over the place. I put them all back on the shelf. I had dried up paint over there in the corner. So that's all sort of sorted. I'll probably just throw that tracing paper away or kitchen paper away and start again with that. But that's all kind of tidy and ready to go. I've kind of sorted all these things out. So all my pens and charcoal and inks and everything are sorted. And then coming over here, I had collage papers everywhere, so I've tidied them into my 2 boxes. So those are my kind of coloured papers and things, and these are my black and white sort of written papers, because I use quite a lot of text in my work. And then we come over to the brushes, and actually I keep expanding. I've now got kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pots. These are my biggest brushes. This next one here is my flats, and so I've got all different sizes of flats. The bigger the painting, the bigger the flat, otherwise you never get anywhere with your paintings. Then these are what I call my more fancy brushes of all different shapes. Some of them are rosemary brushes, some of them are very new brushes. These ones are new, hand-made Italian brushes. And then this pot has got more of my rigger brushes and things I like to use for making nice lines in the painting. I've got dip pens in there. And then this last one here behind the water is my palette knives, which I've started to use much more of actually. And I just want to make a little mention here, because the room was in such a mess that I knew that I'd sort of mislaid a brush, but I couldn't work out where it was. And I found it on the floor near my painting wall, kind of and screwed up, dried paint on it in the corner. So I don't even know now whether I can actually resurrect this brush. I've put sort of special soap on it, and olive soap on it, and I've been washing it, but I might have to soak it for a good while, or it might mean the end of that brush. So that's a bit of a no-no, really. So it's much more tidy, and so all of the things I use as stencils and things I rub onto the paint surface are now all organised. I've got all my spray things there. I've got 3 of those. I've got my my greaseproof paper that I use on my painting palette and stuff there. So that's that, and I'll come back to talk to you about these in a minute, because I'm quite excited about these, and this is one of the moving on things I'm doing. So this is, you've seen this on the wall before, and these on the wall before, and those are just new ideas and things I'd actually started last weekend. So now I've got a much better space to work in. You know, it feels different, it feels sorted, it feels refreshed, which I think is a really, you know, having a studio sort out is a really good thing to do, and to doing it regularly, because otherwise things get very quickly out of hand. So that's one thing. And then, you know, what else? I mean, well, I was working on a whole series of heather paintings, which hadn't, as I said, got very far. I've decided for now, and I don't know how long for, probably just a few days, I've put them to one side, because what I don't want to do is to kind of pick up where I left off last weekend, because I'm not sure I can. But what I wanted to do is to make my life more straightforward for myself. And these paintings here are pretty much done, and they are winter moors based on an experience of walking on Marsden Moor last winter, or before the first lockdown. And they're pretty much done, but they've got a few things to be done on them. So they're kind of tweaks that are things that are relatively straightforward. I've got to obviously use some creativity. I want to make sure, for example, this one doesn't have a bullseye in it, so I'm probably going to make this a little bit subtler, so you don't just go to that point. Things like that. So nothing too dramatic with these. And then once I'm happy with them, I'm going to seal them with gloss medium, and I'm going to paint the sides and possibly even varnish them ready for framing. So I'm kind of making life easier for myself, as well as moving the work on, because that was something I knew I needed to do anyway. I need to start thinking about framing, because I've got quite a lot to do. And then the other thing I did is just yesterday was, I have one group of 6. I'm working on 6 different groups of paintings for the exhibition. I have one group that I've yet to start. So what I went and did was I went to get some more wood cut. And in fact, this is a new way of doing it for me, because until now I've worked mainly on cradle panels or on canvas. So I'm kind of, in another way, I'm kind of just starting with something a bit fresh and something a bit different as a way of moving me on, because I'm not a great one for kind of just picking up where I left off. So this is I'm not going to start on these yet, because I probably will go back to the heather moors before I start on these, but I will probably prepare them. So when I'm coming in next week and I'm maybe not feeling it, I can actually get on with these without having to really do anything in the way of too much concentration. So I can actually, what I'm going to do with these, this is MDF. It's thick MDF, and the thing about MDF is that I'm going to seal it and then use 2 coats of gesso, and then I'm going to use it as I would a cradle board. The thing about it is obviously I can't hang it on the wall in the same way, but I do have a nice desk easel, so I will work on them on that. And so I can do these practical things that will hopefully just kind of keep me moving forward. Hopefully by starting, keeping it gentle for myself, and actually starting with a clean space, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to, albeit, at maybe a slower pace, a slightly different pace, I'm going to be able to move things forward. And so I hope that's been helpful. So I just wanted to end by saying, thanks very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. This is kind of a different video for me. Usually I'm doing some practical work, so please do check out my my channel if you haven't seen it. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Okay, thanks, bye-bye.